Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you for joining us today. We wanted to seek the blessings of Radha Krishna, Radha Shyam Sundar, Radha Madhav, Krishna Balaram Gaunitai, Srila Prabhupada, Gurudev, and assembled devotees so that we can remember two great personalities today. This is one of them. He is Vamsidas Thakur, and the other is Raghunandan Thakur. So first we'll have a look at Vamsidas Thakur. There are two types of exalted devotees of Krishna. The Bhajanandi, completely immersed in intense meditation of the Lord, principally by chanting, remembering the glories and pastimes. So they simply engage in bhajan and kirtan. And then there's the Gostiya Nandi, and he is spreading the holy names of the Lord by extensive preaching. Now, of course, the boundaries between the two are not always rigid. For the Bhajanandi, may sometimes also preach. And the Gostiya Nandi also can relish bhajan and kirtan, but it depends on the mood, on their moods, that they generally make one or the other their primary service. Now, Vamsidas Babaji was a Bhajanandi. He was in this category here. He was mainly engaged in bhajan. He was completely aloof from this material world, totally preoccupied with worshipping his deities, which we'll see later, and performing his bhajan, visiting holy sites, holy places. The true position of Vamsidas Babaji was revealed by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the founder of the Gaudiya Math and the initiating spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. Even though Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, in the mood of a Gostiya Nandi, had made preaching his primary service, as an exalted devotee, he could perceive the greatness of Vamsidas. This mutual affection and respect between the two Paramahamsas formed the basis of a very sweet and loving relationship. So they were contemporaries. Vamsidas had reached the highest level of spontaneous devotion and seldom bothered with the rules and regulations of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. So there are rules and regulations of bhakti, of spiritual life, which are important for those who are conditioned in this world to follow, so that we can slowly, gradually make consistent and stable progress in our Krishna consciousness, God consciousness. But certain devotees, they don't have to even follow any rules or regulations, because they are already at the highest platform. So for instance, he did not chant on beads. He did not follow any fixed schedule of worship. He did not chant any mantras or prayers for worshipping. His brief interactions with the outside world often left people confused and bewildered. Because he was always internally with the Lord, and in a very intense way. So he had no requirement to follow any rules or regulations of bhakti. So who was he? Vamsidas was born as Bhairab Chandra in the year 1859 in the village of Majidpur in current Bangladesh. He was the oldest of 7 children of Sanatan Malla Brahma and Srimati Sarva Sundari. From a young age, he relished the association of Narottam Das Babaji. So that's different from the Narottam Das Thakur, who we have sung many, many bhajans. So this Narottam Das Thakur, he was a devotee who stayed at the temple. From him, Vamsidas learned many bhajans of Narottam Das Thakur. So his bhajans we sung. So Narottam Das Babaji taught Vamsidas Thakur the song bhajans of Narottam Das Thakur, and developed a great attraction for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. So from a very young age, right? His parents were worried by his growing attraction to spirituality married him off when he was young, right? Very young. However, Vamsidas left his wife when his son was 10 years old, and he became a renunciate. He took Diksha, initiation, from Narottam Das Babaji, who gave him the name Vamsidas. Even though Vamsidas had lived a hard life as a youth, as a Babaji, he was extremely austere. He always dressed in one simple loincloth, nothing more. So we saw him right at the beginning, the picture, half naked. He was very, very simple. Even in winter, he would just wear one loincloth. He rarely attempted to procure any food and would often go without eating, sometimes for several days. It was common for him to abstain from both food and water for a day or two. He took very little care of his health. He would bathe in freezing water even when he was sick. Sometimes he wouldn't even bathe for days. Despite all this, Vamsidas looked vibrant and healthy. He was over 6 foot tall and constantly traveling. Even at the age of 80, he walked so fast that many of his younger associates could not keep up with him. Much like the Goswamis of Vrindavan, he survived solely on spiritual energy. Even amongst the Babajis, Vamsidas is unique. He was on the Avadut platform. Avadut means not really caring for any material rules or regulations, not conforming to social standards, that he was completely beyond any rules and regulations. His hair and beard were uncut and matted. He rarely took a bath. He wore nothing more than a loincloth. His eyes looked wild and his behavior intimidating. He often spoke in an unintelligible manner, even though he knew the local Bengali dialect. He sometimes spoke in his native Mymensingh dialect, which very few people could understand. His sentences would run together and he would randomly jump from one topic to another without seeming connection. Sometimes he spoke about the pastimes of Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sometimes he would animatedly talk, and at other times he would remain silent, not even bothering to acknowledge others. Despite his seemingly disorganized life, Vamsidas had a keen sense of discrimination when it came to people. He not only shunned the company of non-devotees, he also avoided the pseudo-Vaishnavas who would often flock by his side to bask in his honor. So there were people who knew that he was actually great devotee. They would come to him to get something from him. He rigidly abided by the principle of adopting that which is favorable to Krishna and rejecting everything else. With a keen intuition, he was able to discern the hidden motives of people coming to him for guidance or blessings and would appropriately respond to them. So many people would come and say, bless me with a son, bless me with a house, bless me with a car. But he wasn't interested in blessing for material benefit. He wanted everybody to improve spiritually. Even though Vamsidas would appear to talk like a madman, he never said anything inconsistent with the conclusions of the scriptures, though he often enigmatically, he often spoke enigmatically. He was always in agreement with the Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta. Vamsidas had 3 sets of deities that he carried along with him. A small Bal Gopal, Krishna in the form of a child, that he was extremely attached to. He had 6-inch metal deities of Radha, Govinda, and he had 3 feet wooden deities of Gaunitai. So he would take them wherever he went. He also carried his deities with him, always carried his deities with him, would continuously talk to them. His mood of worship was that of an affectionate parent. He would talk to Gopal lovingly, sometimes angrily, and sometimes pleadingly. He rarely spoke to anyone but his deities. And sometimes he would stop talking and he would listen, so the deities would speak to him. In his unending conversation with the deities, he would often stop. Sorry, here he is. As if he were to listen, and then continue talking. Even if people would come to ask him questions, he would reply to his deities, referring to himself in the third person as Vamsidas. When Vamsidas was visiting Jagannath Puri during Rath Yatra, the cart stopped close to where he was standing. Despite the efforts of everyone assembled, the cart would not move. Then Vamsidas came, and after some intimate conversation with the Lord, the cart moved on with ease. Once Vamsidas went to the sea in Puri to give Bal Gopal a bath. Arriving on the shore, he beckoned the sea, "Come here, come here." Huge waves crossed over the beach, and Vamsidas was able to bathe his deities. When crossing the river Mahanandi, Vamsidas instructed the boatman to drop him near a point where he claimed was a snake. When the boatman dropped Vamsidas and his associates at that point, a yellow snake appeared. Holding his Bal Gopal deity, Vamsidas exclaimed, "See, Anantadev has come." After some time, the snake went away. Once on a full moon night of Ashwini, Vamsidas instructed his associates not to set up any tent, but camped out in the open. At this time, 50 attractive women dressed in white came and offered obeisances to Vamsidas and left without saying anything. Despite the late hour, they were unescorted, something that never happens in rural India, and none of the locals had any knowledge of them. The devotees concluded that they were demigoddesses who had come to get the blessings of Vamsidas on the auspicious day. One day, Vamsidas cooked sweet rice for Bal Gopal, but before offering it, he angrily threw it away, accusing Gopal of having already eaten rice gur, sweet rice with semi-processed sugar extracted from palm trees, in the Radha Govind temple in Vrindavan. One of the persons who happened to hear this sent a letter to temple priest inquiring about the offering to Radha Govind on that particular day. A reply soon came that the offering on that day was sweet rice cooked with palm tree gur. Once a man suffering from cholera, considered fatal in those days, lay outside the hut of Vamsidas, expecting him to cure him. For 3 days, he lay there moaning with intense pain, without eating and drinking anything. Finally, Vamsidas came outside and placed a tulsi leaf on his tongue. The man was instantly cured, and he got up and went home. When Vamsidas became too old and infirm, he would have trouble going out to do madhukari, begging food from devotees. Once in such a situation, he exclaimed to his servant, "Did you hear what Gauranga was saying? He has told Vamsidas, 'You do not go begging for 3 days. You are now too old, so I will feed you.' This Gauranga wants to feed me?" Saying this, Vamsidas fetched a stick and waved it threateningly at his Gaura deity. "You do not have to go outside for serving me. If you go outside, I will break your legs." So this is the relationship between devotee or Vamsidas and the Lord. He doesn't want any service from the Lord. He's willing to even threaten the Lord. "Don't you dare serve me. I want to serve you." So on March 17th, 1944, Vamsidas returned to his hometown of Majidpur. He did not actually enter the town, as it is traditional for renunciates not to return to their former family. He lived there for some time, and finally on Chaturthi, July 23rd, 1944, Srila Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj concluded his earthly pastimes and resumed his service to Lord Krishna in Golok. So this is a Bhajan Kutir of Vamsidas Babaji in Navadvip, Kola Dvip. And this is Vamsidas Babaji's Bhajan Kutir in Navadvip. Can't remember going there, but interesting. So that's the end of Vamsidas. And now we can go to the next one. Oops, wrong one. Okay. Okay, today is also the disappearance day of Raghunandan Thakur. He was born in a family of physicians in 1511, so about 300-400 years before Vamsidas. His father's name was Mukundadas. Mukundadas was Narahari Sarakar Thakur's older brother. Mukundadas was physician to the king. He lived in the village of Srikand in West Bengal. Raghunandan Thakur took birth on Vasant Panchami. He's an incarnation of one of Krishna's Sakhas. Mukundas is the incarnation of Vrinda Devi. So his father is an incarnation of Vrinda Devi, and he is an incarnation of one of Krishna's Sakhas. Narahari took a great deal of interest in raising his nephew, Raghunandan, for whom he had much affection. Externally, Mukund appeared to be engaged in government service as physician to the king, but in his inner life, he is filled with divine love. Who can know the extent of his love? So, Mukundadas, he was a devotee of the Lord. Once, when Mukundas was engaged in treating the king, he saw a peacock feather and he fainted. So Mukundas, the father of Raghunandan, was very advanced. He saw the peacock feather and he thought of Krishna immediately. And he fainted. So this boy of his, from his young age, Raghunandan Thakur would feed the family's Gopal deity ladus. So this is very interesting now. Mukundadas lived with his household deity Gopinath. One day, he had to go somewhere for work, and he called Raghunandan, who was a small child at that time, to do the service to the deities. Mukundadas said, in this house we worship Krishna, so I want you to be sure to give him something to eat. So Raghunandan, he did as his father had ordered. He made an offering, or he brought an offering to the deities. Raghunandan was just a child, and in his simplicity, he said to Gopinath, eat, eat. Krishna is controlled by love. And initially he didn't eat, but the child asked him again, why haven't you ate? Please eat this food I have put in front of you. And so Gopinath, he ate the food which was on his plate, and he didn't leave a grain of rice. So when the father returned, he asked the boy to bring the prasad from the offering he had made. The boy answered, Father, Gopinath ate everything, he left nothing. Mukundas was so astonished at the boy's wondrous words that he asked him to make another offering. This time after he left the house, Mukunda left the house and he came back. He returned and he hid to watch what his son was doing. There you go. This Krishna, this Raghunandan, this Mukunda. This is the deity of Gopinath. Raghunandan joyfully placed a laddu in Krishna's hands and said in commanding voice, eat, eat. When Krishna had eaten half of the laddu, Mukunda Das came in the doorway. Krishna saw Mukunda and stopped eating. Mukunda observed that Krishna did not take another bite, and that half-eaten laddu remained in his hand. This caused him to be filled with joy. He embraced his child and tears of joy rained from his eyes. To this end, Fortunate people come to Shrikant to see the half-eaten laddu in Gopinath's hand. Raghunandan is not different from Cupid himself. All the Mahantas felt fascinated to see the Gopinath deity, whom Raghunandan has fed laddus. So this is from a scripture called Bhakti Ratnakara. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once asked Mukunda, the father of Raghunandan, who is the father? You, O Raghunandan. Mukunda said, certainly, Raghunandan is my father and I am his son, for I have learned so much from him about bhakti. So who is actually considered to be superior is one who knows about bhakti, one who does bhakti, one who can teach bhakti. So even if the age may be hugely different, so the son here is considered more superior than the father because the son was so engrossed in bhakti. When Raghunandan was 8 years old, his father took him to see Mahaprabhu in Nilachal, Jagannath Puri. As soon as Raghunandan bowed at Mahaprabhu's feet, this beautiful verse spontaneously flowed from his mouth. Oh, my Lord Gauranga, oh, my golden Gauranga, how sweet is your form from which hundreds of streams of luster flow. Even Cupid feels jealous of your beauty, by which you easily steal the heart of anyone who sees you even once. Please bless me that the image of you in your dancing pose remains in my heart forever. Mahaprabhu and his divine associates were amazed. He was only 8, and yet he did such an amazing verse. They blessed him. By Mahaprabhu's order, Raghunandan served Gopinath till the end of his life. Due to his great devotion, at least 2 flowers bloomed every day on the Kadamba tree in his yard, even though Kadamba flowers only bloom in the rainy season. He would offer these special flowers to Gopinath. Mahaprabhu, the father of Sankirtan, gave his adopted son, Raghunandan Thakur, the authority to offer the garland on the day before the Sankirtan Yajna, the Adivash, to make the final offerings at the Yajna's end. Raghunandan accompanied the Bengali devotees to Puri every year during Chaturmasya. He would dance with the uncle Narahari at the Rath Yatra festival. He participated in the Keturi festival organized by Narottam Das Thakur at Gadadhar Das's festival he also was there at Gadadhar Das's festival in Katwa and at the commemorative festival for Narahari Sarkar Thakur in Srikant. Some people said, anyone who is dear to Raghunandan will win Mahaprabhu's mercy for life after life. Others said, Raghunandan is so merciful that he gives life to the most humble and fallen. Some say, what humility, there is no one who is his equal. Others say, he's as beautiful as Cupid himself. Again, from a scripture called Bhakti Ratnakara. Raghunandan had great affection for Srinivas Acharya. Prior to his disappearance, he consoled Srinivas Acharya that despite the difficult times, he would be able to spread Vaishnavism in the future. So this is the blessing of the devotees, very kind. Raghunandan Thakur bequested the service of his Gaur Gopal deity to his son Kanai Thakur, and then left this world on the 4th day of the waxing moon, Shukla Chaturthi, which is today, in the month of Shravan. Kanai Thakur gave a feast as part of the father's last rites. Raghunandan slowly became hidden to mortal eyes while repeating the name of Sri Krishna Chaitanya again and again. How glorious is that day of Shravan Shukla Chaturdasi. Chaturthi. So this is the deity of Gopinath, and this is Raghunandan. No, so this is Gopinath. This is Gopinath who's got the laddu in his hand, half eaten. So you can still see this in, I think, Srikant. We've never been there, but this deity is still present there. So any questions, any comment? These two personalities, we like to seek their blessings and their love so that we can progress in our Krishna consciousness. Yes, Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
To you, Mataji, and all the devotees. The first one, the second one was a bit difficult. It was all right, but the first one, when you say the, was it Vimales?
Vamsidas.
Vamsidas.
Yes.
In the starting, when he was reading, and then in between it came about, he never done any chanting, he never done any prayers, he never done any beats.
This is a natural devotee. Yeah.
And natural devotee. He was, some days he didn't even eat, he didn't even bath. He was only wearing one lion cloth, which you saw the picture, and never, never saved himself, things like that.
Yeah.
But, and he, I think, the way you were saying, he survived with his bhakti, not
yes.
bhakti.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
bhakti.
Bhakti.
The chanting, we must, he never even chanted, didn't he? But he still survived with his whole body, even without eating anything or drinking anything. And that was, I think that is the power of God which was inside his body.
Yeah.
And that is very good, I think so.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's the way you was reading. And then I was, as you was reading, I was thinking that thing. I said, some people can survive so much like that, even without food. If we don't eat one day and next day you feel like, oh, dizzy, you feel dizzy.
Yeah, true.
And this man, it's just the God Sakti in his body.
Yeah.
And when he came back, you said that he never went to see his family. He just said, sit one side, which was good.
And he didn't need to chant because he was always with God. You know, he was,
God.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he carried his devotees with him.
With deities with him. Yeah.
It was very good. That's it. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. Huh? So, Vamsidas Thakur ki jai, Raghunandan Das Thakur ki jai.